Hello, hello, hello. It is Austin, aka AK, with the MTG Homebrew Network, and I'm here to bring you another Tiny Leaders deck. This one is a favorite of mine. It is a colorless deck. It is led by Omarthis, the Ghostfire Initiate, a double X legendary creature Spirit Naga that reads, Omarthis Ghostfire Initiate enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on another colorless creature, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Omarthis. And then, when Omarthis dies, manifest a number of cards from the top of your library equal to the number of counters on it. So, he's super fun. This deck is one of my favorites because, as you have probably noted from many of my deck techs so far, I like to be able to pivot in either aggro or combo, and that is exactly what this deck does. But they kind of mesh in the fact that when Omarthis dies, he replaces himself with a bunch of 2/2s. And so that's really fun with Altar of Dementia. Here, let me pull up the deck for you. So here's the deck. We've got Omarthis here, and then our main go-to is Altar of Dementia, but we can also use Ashnod's Altar to get what we want here as well. Because when we do the Altar of Dementia combo, essentially, if we can get Omarthis to being like a 6/6, then it goes from having 6 power to having 12 power on board, which means we have now milled them effectively for 18 cards. Now, if you do that twice, they're basically done for if they're drawing cards or going through their own library to any extent. Whereas with the Ashnod's Altar, it allows us to sacrifice Omarthis and a bunch of our other creatures to replay Omarthis and manifest a large number of other cards. And the fact that we manifest the top cards of our library means that we want to have a very large creature package. And our creature, we run 16 creatures in this deck. Couple of them don't like to be manifested because they are themselves X creatures, because we can play them on curve to trigger Omarthis. But here, let me go through a couple for you. We've got Endless One, Hangerback Walker, Stone Coil Serpent, you know how it is, Ugin's Conjurant, Walking Ballista, the other way we can end games here. And then we're also on a bit of a modular package, which they don't trigger and affect Omarthis, but they do trigger themselves. Well, I guess they do trigger Omarthis. That's me messing up there a little bit. They do trigger Omarthis, but you cannot modular onto Omarthis. But because of the fact that we have so many artifact creatures in the deck, it allows us to move counters around, which every time we move a counter will trigger Omarthis. So with the Ashnod's Altar and the Altar of Dementia, we can sacrifice our modular creatures, move the counters over, and then cause more triggers to go off. That being said, we have a couple of cards that affect our +1/+1 counter game. The one I would like to point to most is the Ozolith, because the Ozolith is our best way of retaining all of our counters upon death. It keeps us in the game longer, essentially. With this strategy, we like to pivot on our sideboard to either a more controlling strategy, such as with Defense Grid and Ratchet Bomb, as well as Spatial Contortion being one of the few pieces of removal we actually have in colorless. Because that's the thing about running a colorless Tiny Leader deck, is you don't have many options when it comes to instants and sorceries, and thus you're kind of relegated to a permanent only playstyle. And with that being noted, we have a few cards that allow us to cast at instant speed, such as Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter, and Skittering Cicada. Now, I would also like to draw attention to the fact that this is being a colorless deck. There are a few cards that affect colorless creatures. Said colorless creatures like Glaring Fleshraker. You know what? Just Glaring Fleshraker on its own is basically the secret commander of the deck, because once it hits board, if I'm able to stick an Omarthis or sack Omarthis, you're probably done. Because For those of you who don't know, Glaring Flesh Raker is a 2 generic, 1 colorless for an Eldrazi drone 2/2. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature, add a colorless. Whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, Glaring Flesh Raker deals 1 damage to each opponent. So if we go back to our 6/6 Omarthis, he dies, we get 6 doofs, that's 6 damage. And so on and so forth. We have also like Hangerback Walker that can do things like that. We're on Apocryphite. It's a very, very brutal combination to deal with. And then in terms of protecting our commander, if we're going for a more commander-centric beatdown strategy, we have cards like Commander's Plate, which I think is the best equipment in the deck because, well, we have protection from every color in the game at that point. So the only things they can really do to deal with our commander would be to Blast Zone or Ratchet Bomb or get rid of the Commander's Plate first, which, you know, the longer it takes for them to deal with that, the more chances we get to run them over. And yeah, that's the deck. The land package is not very crazy or unique. There's a couple of cards in here that let us tap for more than 1 colorless, such as Ancient Tomb, Guildless Commons, and Crystal Vein. Well, you get the point. City of Traders. But essentially, we want to tap for as much mana as feasibly possible to play our big X spells on curve or ahead of curve. And that's the deck. That is Colorless Counter Crunch. And I would love to hear your suggestions for equipment or other creatures that could go into this deck that would help me with managing more +1/+1 counters, more colorless tribal, or ways to abuse the manifestation mechanic. And thank you for coming out to watch.
Thanks for watching the video. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please consider checking out the tokens I make over on Etsy. There's over 100 tokens available, but if you don't see something you're looking for, don't hesitate to reach out in our Discord, as I do custom orders.